And once again, here
Da,
we
da,
are.
da, 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 da.
We are live.
Yes.
Hi, kids. Welcome to
morning.
TeaFlix Tuesdays. And today we are super excited because, as you guys know, we love to support women in business and especially the creative arts, filmmakers, designers, writers, chefs, and so on and so forth.
I thought you were going to say chefs and strippers then, but hey.
No.
Hey,
Be
why
nice.
not?
Keep the party clean. It's going on this nice young lady's website. So let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. So Christina Capra was born in Los Angeles, California, and grew up on the West Coast before moving to Wilmington, North Carolina, where she graduated from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington with honors, with a degree in film studies. Christina grew up on film sets and follows in her father, Frank Capra Jr.'s footsteps, and also her grandfather, Frank Capra Sr., as she carries on the family legacy. And we're going to chat to her today about a fabulous project that she is developing for her studio called Poster Girls, but we'll get to that very shortly. First of all, without further ado, with a name like Capra, you think we might be talking about film. Ladies and gentlemen, Hello, Christina. Nice to meet you.
Hello, Christina.
Hello.
Welcome.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I was so delighted when Joan Alford put me in touch with you. So I'm just name dropping Joan Alford because you probably watched.
I'm sure she'll be
Hi,
watching.
Joan.
Yeah. Hello, Joan.
Here
Joni.
at some point.
Yeah.
Jolly good. So you're coming to us live from where today?
So I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now. I moved here about 2 years ago. Wanted to be a little bit more, I guess, centrally located in North Carolina. Easier access, I guess, to Atlanta. You know, I don't know if you know or not, but the film industry in North Carolina took a hit a few years back. The tax incentives that are so crucial to kind of bringing industry here kind of changed to a different sort of program. And it's very competitive. Many states have different, tax incentive programs. And so, a lot of industry has shifted to Atlanta or, even out of the country. But North Carolina is coming back. It's got a film industry that's starting to thrive again.
Good.
Projects are coming in. So, I'm hopeful that it'll rebound somewhat.
Well, and it's great that I know you were born here in Hollywood, but it's great that you're there because that is where your family really, did a very brave thing back in the day. And with Screen Jams, EUE Screen Jams and the studios. I mean, I remember thinking, good grief, North Carolina, where's that?
Yeah. Now we know.
Tell us a little bit about the background so how old were you when you moved there, and was Screen Gems up and running, or was it all, being done as you were growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad came here for the first time to North Carolina, just many years ago, and worked on one of the early films in the area, which was Firestarter with Drew Barrymore.
I remember that.
So that was filmed in Wilmington. At the time, it was Dino De Laurentiis' studio, and it transferred over to be Screen Gems. And my dad actually met my mom on the set of Firestarter. She and her family are from North Carolina, and they, fell in love and moved to California and had me. And then many years later, he was invited to come back to be the studio head of Screen Gems.
Screen Gems, yeah.
He went from producing films to actually being a studio head, and then eventually moved to Wilmington to be the studio head of Screen Gems.
Wow. I remember the name Screen Gems to me.
David Cassidy.
Right. Yeah. Scream's Partridge Family, which is way, way, way before your time. But I knew Screen Gems from producing the Partridge Family TV series. And I was always like, I wonder where that Screen Gems is. I wonder if David goes and hangs out there. I wonder if I could mail myself to Screen Gems.
That was well before Beatle fans. There were David Cassidy fans.
Well, 1972, all the way back then. Yeah. So I mean, part of your bio says that you grew up on film sets. So
I'd like to know more about your family legacy. Your and your personal journey, of course, which you've just told us a little bit about. But for our viewers and friends who are tuning in.
Yeah. Did you ever want to do anything else but film, or was it just kind of in your blood?
I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was younger. I love animals. I loved science. I was I was kind of studious minded. And so I was very into, maybe becoming a vet or, a biologist or something. And when I went, and my dad, he was so supportive of everything and anything I wanted to do.
That's
He was
great.
just
Yeah.
so charismatic and just
Yeah.
so smart and fun and funny and loving. And just, he was a wonderful dad. And I remember one time, he has this at Screen Gems, he had a very kind of ornate, office, of course, for the president, big wooden desk, just kind of ornate looking in there. And I had a school project where I was doing like intelligence tests on a little group of mice that I got at a pet store, which of course they all became my pets, and that was the whole point. I'm like, I built like a cute little maze, and they ran through, and I just loved them. But my mom was like, I don't know if I want 10 mice in the house, and my dad's like, well, I guess they can come to the studio. And so he had like 2 tanks of my pet mice in his office.
That's so cute.
That's
So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have 10 mice and you leave them alone for the weekend, pretty soon you have 20 mice.
I know. We were careful about what sex they were. That's for sure.
That, yeah.
But I guess it was kind of later on in high school when I started thinking about film. And then in college, I wasn't still sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I did go to UNCW, which my dad had taught at, and he had just passed away. He passed away, kind of in my senior year of high school. And he had taught at UNCW. So those professors there, they all had this wonderful relationship with him. Yeah. And I felt like still very connected to him when I went to that school, and I got very into film studies. And then I just put that as my major, and I just took every class I could, and I just I never looked back.
What age were you then, Christina?
Oh, just in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Just in college, yes. And it's been really that was a wonderful school. I have to shout out to UNCW's film department. Yeah. They had amazing professors.
That's great. And it must have felt like, when the professors would get to recollect things and tell stories about your dad, you're sort of a fly on the wall to the other part of his life that, he went out to a teaching job, and you'd be, as a kid, somewhere else going to high school. You must have learned so much more about him from the, not just the alumni, but the professors and stuff. That must have felt really kind of warm and fuzzy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of them were his good friends, and he was running the studio at the time, but he took time out of his already pretty busy schedule to be a part-time professor. Because he was so passionate about, young filmmakers and uplifting, younger filmmakers. And he was very proud that I was going to go to college. I was, the child that was going to go to college, and education was very important to him.
That's right. I'm getting a comment from our also McCartney Studios alum, Dina Sheldon. She is an incredible camerawoman, inventor, director of photography. She and her partner Jeff live out in Palm Springs. She was, I think, the first lady to be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame in the media department. She's shot thousands of football games, and then Ronald Reagan's funeral, and
oh my gosh,
a lot of government stuff. I know. I'll introduce you guys because you're both on McCartney Studios now. And she's just saying that they were at one point they were going to rent the Capra estate near Fallbrook. Legendary. That's what a small world. We're all in the same place at the same time. And she's just saying, love the documentary on Netflix, 5 Came Back.
I did have the opportunity to visit that property at one point. It was very it was cool. I think it would be nice to have a lot of animals there. That's what I would think to use.
Yeah, make it kind of a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Get your mice back.
So what are some of the, did you just suddenly come to the realization in college that, boy, filmmaking is obviously staring me in the face? Or did you, growing up and obviously watching your grandfather's films and, classics like It's a Wonderful Life, which is part of the American fabric of history, isn't it?
Everybody watches it again every
year. Absolutely. Yeah. Did you have sort of storytelling and directing fantasies, dreams, passions as a kid, or were you literally like it smacked you in the face when you were in your early 20s?
I always loved films, and so did my dad and my mom, and we would go see pretty much anything and everything that came out. I was seeing R-rated films when I was like 12. My dad had sort of standards, like, oh, well, violence is fine, just nothing, too risque.
Yeah.
So
Nothing skanky.
I always loved film. I always, loved storytelling, I guess, and, had tremendous respect for my grandfather and my dad. But, when I was young, I mean, like 12, I would go visit the studio and my dad would just, he'd be busy or whatever. And he'd just turn me loose. He's like, go do whatever, Christina. And I would just run out there to the back lot and just go to all the prop masters and just play on the sets. And
it must have been great. Yeah.
It was so magical. It was just such a fun time for me.
Yes.
Wow. And now the closest we can get now is these crappy, tours on a tram, right?
Right.
But you had the privilege of literally being there and going through the costume boxes and the prop boxes and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
so
kind of
fun.
inevitable that you would wind up being a director, producer, screenwriter, really.
Have you had time to start writing a book yet, or will that be later?
I think that might be later. I'm definitely working on some.
But you should keep diaries and keep notes of everything.
Yeah,
I've kept diaries since I was 13, and I'm 95 now.
Wow.
And
do you write every day?
A whole cupboard in this house full of my diaries.
Yeah.
Do you keep track every day?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's such great technology now where you can keep track of it digitally. You can talk to your phone and keep it all. And there are places that'll help you, shape and turn it into
just keep it
a
somewhere.
book. You should really start to record all those memories.
Yeah.
Because later in life, when you're directing Oscar-winning films, you'll be too damn busy.
Did you hear that?
Don't laugh. I said
Not
when.
When.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you wearing that night? Yeah.
Yes, right. All right. No, you have to plan your outfit for the Oscars. You have to write your acceptance speech now before you even know which project it's going to be. Speaking of projects, so your short documentaries like Lived in Bodies and the Karen Payton Crouch project In the Land of Make Believe have garnered attention at various film festivals. What drew you to those subjects, and what messages are you aiming to really convey through those kind of works?
Well, when I graduated from film school, I just sort of took a part-time job at an art gallery in Wilmington. It was called Art and Bloom, lovely gallery. And I got to know kind of a whole community of artists in Wilmington. And they were just lovely people and so talented, some of them. And I was tasked, with a few interns one summer, and I was like, I'm not sure what I do with some art student interns. I had just graduated from college myself, and I was like, well, I know film, so let's maybe we can make a film about an artist, and we did, and I didn't have any real aspirations for that project, but it ended up getting into a couple regional film festivals and screening there, and that kind of emboldened us to do another one. And then I really wanted to dig in deeper and do Lived in Bodies, which is, about, I guess it's a little over 20 minutes long. So it's a bit longer for a short. It was more involved. We kind of went over this woman's she has a incredible life story. So we started kind of early on, and she's done tons of really powerful commissions over the years. Like her name's Virginia Wright Frierson, and she's the participant of Lived in Bodies, and she was hired to do the Columbine mural. So after the the tragedy that happened at Columbine High School, she was hired to do this huge, beautiful mural.
God, what a heart-wrenching thing for an artist's soul to have to memorialize that. It's just I wouldn't even know. I mean, I'm not an artist, but I'm digitally, but not paint-wise. You wouldn't even know where to start with that, would you?
Oh no. And it was really intense what she did. It's so big. She was walking around like with a paintbrush on a really long stick and painting it while standing up on this huge canvas, and really interesting. But then her latest series, which was the title of the film, Lived in Bodies, is very interesting. She painted realistic nude portraits of women, but they're all over the age of 65.
Wow.
very striking, beautiful images.
I don't know about
I
beautiful.
don't know, beautiful, no.
They're very, very beautiful. And she said, you just don't see, you know, like so many older women depicted in art,
Right, that's
especially in
true.
that way.
That's
That's
right.
true. I mean, when I get out of the shower and look in the mirror, I look like the north end of a southbound elephant. I don't know if anybody would want to paint that. But
I've covered my mirror up in the bathroom.
yeah, Angie's got gaff tape all over her mirror. So.
Don't want to go there.
Yeah, but you know, sometimes our friend Efrat is tuning in from Israel, and sometimes the truly interesting stories are a life long lived and well lived and interestingly lived. She's just saying her grandmother is 100 years old, and she's got her war memories documented in a book. You know, yes, absolutely, it could make a great movie. I mean, anybody who can, you know, first of all, survive 100 years, but what Efrat's grandmother must have gone through in Israel, you know, and the Second World War, and now again with all the troubles in the Middle East. I mean, you know, when you look at this stuff on the news, it's also vast and it's presented in such a mass way.
Yeah.
You know, you don't always drill down to the single person and their red thread through life of their story. You know, I think that's what's so powerful about documentary filmmaking is that it really does hone in on the true experience.
I watch more documentaries than anything else when I go to bed at night.
Yeah, I do too.
We don't have a television set in the living room. We've got one in the kitchen so that when the chef's getting dinner at night, you know, I can hang out with her and have a glass of wine.
Or six.
Or six. Now then. And but I've watched some wonderful documentaries lately. I'm really hooked on them. And there's a channel called the 60 Minutes channel, which has got some great, they're all about 20, 25 minutes long, but you can learn so much. There are so many interesting subjects that are never talked about.
Do you have, Christina, a particular genre of filmmaking that is a favorite? I mean, we'll talk about Poster Girls in a minute, which is obviously a screenplay that you've adapted from this book that you've optioned. But does one excite you more than the other, or is it all just equally important storytelling?
I've always been drawn to, you know, basically films with, and they can be cross-genre films. I'm drawn to a lot of different genres. I love, you know, I watched Sinners last night, which was just fantastic, and I enjoyed every second of that. And also had a female cinematographer, the first female cinematographer to use IMAX cameras, and but you know, Ryan Coogler, that was just an amazing film. But I will say that I personally am drawn to films with like powerful, you know, female protagonists. So that could cross a lot of genres. But you know, when I was growing up, I guess certain films really struck me, and one of them, interestingly, was Kill Bill with Quentin Tarantino. I loved
Yeah,
I did too.
Yeah,
and that film, you know, that woman went through hell, but she just was so powerful and had a lot more kind of autonomy, and she was very she had like this efficacy that you don't usually see in a female character. Like she was better at, you know, the martial arts than even like Bill, who was supposed to be so great, and she, you know, just things like that. That movie struck me.
Yeah.
And I looked up to her. Like, I was like, wow, that's my role model. You know, I'm like 12. And one time we were at the Directors Guild of America Awards. And I think my dad was presenting an award. And so was Quentin Tarantino. And he was there and he was sitting at a table. And I was like I said, I was like 12. I was like a little girl. And my dad like walks me over to Quentin. And he's like, hi, Quentin, I just want you to know this is like your biggest fan. And Quentin was like looking around, and then he saw me like this 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Surprised. But he was so nice. And he invited me to sit with him. And my dad just left me. And, you know, he talked to me some that night. And
wow, great.
It was really amazing.
That's got to be inspirational. It's not, I mean, I met him once briefly at a Golden Globes Hollywood Foreign Press party, and he was very gregarious and nice and up, but you know, a million people around him. We didn't have what I would call a conversation, but to get to sit as a young, you know, 12-year-old and have a conversation with him about that must have been Absolutely. One of my favorite films that has a very odd, some people think it's a subservient female role, but I see it exactly the opposite, is Lost in Translation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, that
It's,
was terrific.
you know,
Yeah.
Scarlett she's just completely, apart from calling home for recipes and, you know, dealing with idiot carpet samples being FedExed. I just think it's just a film I could watch over and over again. Plus, you know, who doesn't love Bill Murray, right?
Yes.
I can watch that man read the
I would say
phone book.
people who have to work with him.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, no.
Yes. I am a big fan of Sofia Coppola as well.
Yes. And again, a female director.
Yeah.
I think it was her first film, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think
I'm not sure it was her very first. I think there was the Virgin Suicides.
Oh, that's right.
That was also a very powerful film. Very, you know, very beautiful, but also very, you know, dark.
Yes.
Right.
Really loved that film as well.
Yeah.
But
Now,
yeah.
what about this current project in development and the screenplay about Poster Girls? What can you tell us?
Well, so Poster Girls is based off of a novel. I was approached by an author. She's a North Carolina author. I've got the book right here. I just want to show you what originally attracted me to this novel, which is this beautiful cover art.
Oh, yeah.
Rosie the Riveter.
Rosie the Riveter, yes. But she's, as you can see, she's Black. And also there's this woman holding, you know, a mop down here. Yeah. And so I just was like, that's really intriguing. And that's kind of the central image for the whole film, if you will. It's like, it's set obviously in the 1940s. It's a fresh take on Rosie the Riveter and follows a diverse group of women working in a big factory, a big munitions factory. They're making Bofor gun shells. So they're making those big, shells for those swiveling guns that were on the ships that would shoot down aircrafts. And that factory actually exists. So there's certainly historical fiction elements, although it's a fictionalized version. All these women are, you know, fictional, but you can imagine that this is their life. And so, you know, I just think it's a beautiful story of friendship at the heart of it. It's a group of women who they face tremendous adversity in the form of sexism and racism. You know, Jim Crow is the laws are, you know, there's a main character named Cora who is a Black woman, and she's just the first Black woman to be allowed to work on the assembly line in the factory, and she faces a lot of racism, and the group of girls in general face just a lot of sexism. You know, women were not allowed in the workplace really before this, certainly not in these kinds of jobs and in, like, supervisor roles and things. So, you know, it's just really interesting, and it's told from the perspective of a woman named Maggie, and her given name is Morose, which apparently is Irish for rosemary. So you do find out, you know, as the movie progresses that, you know, the other women find out that her real name is Rosemary, and they start kidding with her, you know, like, calling her Rosie. So it kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah. So, and, you know, if you think about those times, and you're right, I mean, I think women were sort of allowed to be teachers or secrarians.
Right.
Or nurses.
Yeah, or wives.
Or
primarily.
The dinner lady, the lunch lady at school, right?
That's right, yeah.
But, you know, the women were sort of, you know, in the homestead in the 40s and 50s.
Know your place.
But this is probably, you know, somebody like your Rosemary character wouldn't have had African-American acquaintances, friends. Because of segregation, they just would never have found themselves in the same diners or churches or buses or trains or anything like that. You know, and so that's a whole other layer, isn't it?
It is. And they meet kind of through happenstance. Now, Maggie, the character, she is not from the South. She's from Boston, and her family is, you know, from Ireland. So she's an immigrant, and she doesn't fit in well with Southern society. You know, she married a man whose parents were kind of like Southern aristocrats, but she herself is really struggling. You know, people are mean. The other women are mean to her and things. And she finds herself having a hard time making friends. And she strikes up a casual conversation with Cora, the Black woman who is working, in a library, and they have this mutual love of literature. Cora is just very intelligent and just,
thirsty for knowledge.
yes, and they just form a kind of an unlikely friendship in the time period, and they rely on each other. Then their friendship group expands to include another, some cast of characters, interesting characters, women characters at the plant.
And where does it take place?
Well, it could be anywhere, I would say, in the South.
Okay.
It takes place in Charlotte as far as the book is concerned. It's it's based off of an actual factory, the
Right.
shell plant that did exist in Charlotte. And
Right.
back in the day, it employed like 10,000 people. So it was quite covered many acres.
Nice.
Little
Wow.
known, it doesn't exist anymore, but the government, bought up all that land and turned it into this big compound, and they were making these gopher shells there.
God, that's amazing. You did tell me when we were prepping for this interview that they go on a trip and there's a scene that takes place somewhere else, right?
Right, they do. They end up in Washington, D.C. I don't want to give spoilers, obviously, but they end up, the girls in Washington, D.C., Cora and Maggie, and Cora ends up at the Lincoln Memorial because that's something she really wanted to do. She wanted to go there, and she has some beautiful dialogue with, kind of the President Lincoln statue that's meaningful and very beautiful, and kind of harkens, I think, back to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. That's
just wanted to say that's got to give you chills.
It's an homage to that film. That's my favorite of my grandfather's films.
Yeah.
And I think it's so powerful and beautiful. And those shots, the cinematography, and I really would like to, harken back to that that film for this scene. I think it's going to be very powerful.
Just made me think I'll watch that again.
Yes, absolutely. So if anybody watching, because this will go not only on McCartney Studios, but YouTube, and you just never know, people worldwide, if you've got $10 to $12 million and you would like to play with, Christina's development here of Poster Girls, reach out. You can find her, ChristinaCapra.com. And I mean, you just, if you don't ask, you won't get. So exactly. This young lady would like 10 or 12 million, and let's make a film.
Okay.
Let's go to Washington. Why not?
Sounds great.
Well, I mean, you've already been recognized with awards like Best Female Director at the New York Tri-State International Film Festival. So, I mean, you are so humble. Is it, do you just accept these awards as part of the journey of building the brand and, the legacy of steps you have to take to get the recognition? Or, I mean, how do you handle when somebody heaps a huge award on you like that, being such a quote unquote normal person? It must, sit like, oh boy, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
Well, I did have that moment sort of recently at the Beaufort Film Festival in South Carolina, and the screenplay for Poster Girls won Best Feature Screenplay, and I got this beautiful little crystal award. And I think that was the moment that I was really like, wow, that's, I'm so grateful, and I'm just so happy that I had that experience, because you like when you put art out into the world, it's very, very nice to have some kind of, even if it's just not an award, but just a person who responds to it in some way.
Appreciates,
yeah.
And it means something to somebody in some way.
So for any young aspiring filmmakers who are watching, there is a certain path, which I guess when you go to film school, they teach you, but there's a certain path to all of the right film festivals to submit to, and so on and so forth. Is that part of your sort of, daily production thing of you and your team looking for, okay, where should we submit the screenplay? Where should we submit the short film? And how does that process work?
I have just been discovering that as I go. I've spent some time now on the film festival circuit, and I know that there's, I love all of the regional film festivals, but Lived in Bodies actually screened in Beverly Hills in LA at the Lady Filmmakers Festival, and we went out there for that. It was so much fun. Just a beautiful festival, all lady, filmmakers. It's just a celebration of women in film, and it was so fun to see it, in a historical theater in LA.
Yes.
So that was a lot of fun as well. And for younger filmmakers, like I feel I am, kind of seeing where it will take me myself. But I will say that, my films, my documentaries were shot just with no budget really at all, and it was just me, and my intern Jesse, and we just, we didn't know where the story would go exactly. We had some idea, and we just experimented. It was very freeing, and just
that's great.
But I was very surprised and happy to see that those films did well.
Yes, I bet.
Especially with no budget.
I Googled you, of course, and I learned a lot. And one thing I was thinking about your educational background in film studies and a minor in psychology. How do these disciplines intersect, with your storytelling and character development?
Film and psychology are interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It is. And, I just started taking psychology classes, if I'm honest, in college, and I found it, kind of as an elective. And I just ended up really enjoying what I was learning about that, especially. And I just felt like, well, I ended up taking so many psychology classes as an elective. Eventually I completed a minor. I didn't even realize it. But I'm not sure what it was exactly that drew me to psychology. I have always been interested in science. I took, cell biology. I took all of the prerequisites to become like, a biologist, or, again, when I was early in, I just didn't know. And I started seeing these films from these old masters and learning so much about the actual, mise en scène and these terms and these techniques that I just didn't know before. I had been around film production, but to study it at a theoretical level was completely new to me, and I was just hooked. And I was very into the critical side of the film studies.
And the way technology is changing day by day, isn't it? It's absolutely spellbinding to know what you need to concentrate on, what you need to learn the most. And by tomorrow, something else hits the headlines. It's like Ruth and Martin with their work in, social media and AI. It's just
changes everything.
Just mind-boggling.
I mean, when you
it is mind-boggling.
The first, we have something called Verified Voice Vault at McCartney.ai, and Martin found an audio recording of Claire de Lune from the 1800s. It was the first voice ever recorded to be able to be played back, and it's all fuzzy wuzzy. Now we can literally switch on a microphone in our iPhones. And this is during the time when my grandmother was alive, and we've come that far. But I think the public, you were saying your earlier shorts didn't have a budget. I don't think necessarily, unless you're out in the market for a blockbuster on the 4th of July weekend and a bucket of popcorn, but that's a whole different product, right? It's like McDonald's versus, a gourmet meal, right? I think the public really still has a gut feeling for the love that goes into a project. They don't really care if it was shot on DSLR or IMAX or an iPhone, iPhone with 4K, right? I think the story is the thing. It's like the ingredients to a meal, right? You can tell crap food from good food, and you can tell when it's made with love.
Right. I think that's so true. And so I think for younger, young filmmakers, the important thing is to just get out there and make content.
Do it. Exactly.
I will say film school helped me. That was a good move for me, but it's not accessible for everyone. And if it's not, then, you can accomplish quite a bit with, free software, free screenwriting software. And, the iPhones are very powerful cameras now.
Yeah.
They can deliver very cinematic pieces. So and content's important.
I think, was it Martin Scorsese? Didn't he make a whole film on iPads?
I don't know. That's fascinating.
Yeah, Martin's just saying yes. He taught. I think it was at NYU or at Tisch. One of them. He taught a film class for a year.
Oh.
And the assignment was with, like rolling, instead of dollies, they had office chairs with wheels on, and
I did that.
and selfie lights from Amazon. And
Yes.
each film student was given a budget of like, you have your iPhone, now spend $199 on all the other equipment you need, including lavaliers and all of the rest of it, and make something. You're never gonna get the look and feel of another one of our alum, Eric Zimmerman. He shot The Mandalorian, and all the gear and all the real stuff. But again, if the story is there, I think the public really has a gut feeling for what's organic and what's kind of bubblegum manufactured. It's like music, you've got your Bob Dylans and your Neil Youngs, but then you have your K-pop boy bands.
Yeah.
There's an audience for everything.
By the way, we have a very dear friend of mine, Xavier Bergen. He's coming for afternoon tea on Sunday, and he is a filmmaker. And I met him when I was doing an improv class for
National Lampoon.
National Lampoon, of all things. And I thought, when I was invited to go, I thought they wanted me to sit in the audience of these classes and just sort of do a Maggie Smith, say, be a Maggie Smith, and say, what on earth is he talking about? But then I realized on the first night I was called to go on stage and perform, and I was blown away. This is 6 years ago, was it?
More than that, 8 or 10.
And Xavier was one of the students, and he took me under his wing. He was very kind to me and guided me and helped me. And we had a whale of a time. And he is now a professor, and he's had several awards, and he's having a screening tonight of one of his movies.
Yeah, Lifetime. He's got a movie on Lifetime premiering
Lifetime
this weekend.
But he has absolutely done it from the bootstrap upwards. He could really, confirm what you have said.
But again, he's made a lot of short films about the African American experience from a female
racism
perspective,
point of view,
from a racism point of view, and they're just great stories.
They're wonderful.
Yes, it's all down to the story.
I'll write and tell you about him.
Yeah,
when we get
please do.
Yes,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking ahead, once you get Poster Girls, up rolling and cut and done and all of those things, what you already said, strong females, but are there any particular avenues of stories that you're eager to tell? Is it heartbreak? Is it romance? Is it sports? Is it
pets,
business?
animals.
Is it women with animals? Or
I had another idea, which I'm working on that script now. It's most of the way done, and it's also based on a true story. I don't mind sharing a little bit about it. It's based off of a girl who becomes a lighthouse keeper, but in the 1820s. And this actually happened. Her father was injured, and at the age of 12, she assumed his duties, which were very intense and very dangerous. And she was the lighthouse keeper for many, many, many years before she was formally recognized by the Coast Guard as the lighthouse keeper. And it's a beautiful story. So I think, and I'm just drawn to period pieces as well. I like to do that historical research, and it's just fun to me. I love those costumes, and I love lighthouses. I think there's something very cinematic about lighthouse.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, I in my mind's eye, I can almost see that. It's almost like you need to find an Anna Paquin, right?
Yes.
In the piano, I think she was what?
Yes,
she
something
was very
like that.
young,
a very gritty 12-year-old. Let me tell you, because that was a hard job.
No kidding. And all this, my back, all those stairs.
There were a lot of shipwrecks, things that would take place. They would be pulling bodies out of the ocean, and just it's hard. I mean, it's amazing that a 12-year-old could and did do that, and I think that's part of what is so amazing, is that that's based off of a true account.
And I think, if you're honest, if we're honest, there were probably millions of women out there doing the hard jobs and the crap jobs. It's just that it wasn't the time to tell the stories. The men were always, here I come to save the day, and it was always the swashbuckling cowboy or the John Wayne or what have you. But I'm sure there were probably, female cowgirls and farmhands.
Of course there were. My mother, this has just made me remember, My mother, who was born in 1888, I think,
Mhm.
worked in a munitions factory in the First World War, and she was on the night shift because all the men had gone away to war, so all the women worked in the factories making arms.
Toaster girls, yeah.
And one thing I remember her telling me, which is quite inconsequential, that she used to steal cabbages on the way home, 7 o'clock in the morning. She had a sharp knife, and where she walked home, she would go past farms and she'd nip into the fields and cut a couple of cabbages off that we'd all, the family would live off for.
Oh my gosh.
You might wait.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
I just thought of it.
And I've never heard it, you see.
No.
We're breaking news. We're spilling the tea.
Spilling the tea.
Stolen cabbages. My grandmother was
a cabbage thief. Yeah.
Cabbage thief.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
a bomb maker. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Oh, Dina's just saying, the lighthouses even had Fresnel lenses, didn't they, for the dissipation through the fog to get the lights out.
They did. And I think in the 1820s, they were still all oil. So, and in this particular lighthouse, they had like 8 little tiny oil lamps. And so you had to keep these little wicks burning all night long, and they would go out, with heavy wind or rain, which it was always heavy wind or rain. And so, the lighthouse keeper had to stay up all night, oftentimes, keeping that light burning.
Well, I'm so old. When I used to PA and thought about the film business, we still had in the back of those huge, I think, were they called C4s or C5s? The big burgundy Mole Richardson lights that weighed, 1,000 pounds each. We used to have to literally stand on a ladder and turn the carbon sticks. They were burning carbon.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, and the smoke, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the grease paint. Yeah. The roar of the smell of the smoke.
Oh my gosh.
Richard Wetzel's watching. He's an incredible Hollywood makeup artist and special effects and hair guy that I used to work with 40 odd years ago. And the stuff we used to have to schlep. You think about it now, you can film on an iPhone, and we used to, have to run up hills in Echo Park with a roll of 110 pounds of 4-aught cable on your back. Jeez, it's changed. It's changed.
You sound like John Cleese now. You were lucky.
You were lucky. We used to dream of having an iPhone when I was growing up. Exactly. That's absolutely wild. Well, so folks can find out more about Christina at her website, ChristinaCapra.com, or you can head over to McCartney Studios and see her shingle over there. And is there anything else that I asked you this?
Asked you.
Yeah, is there anything else when you do interviews that people forget to ask?
I think we covered just
about all of it. Yeah, I think so too.
Today. I think it was just wonderful. I'm so happy that you invited me on.
It's just great pleasure.
It's been an absolute great time.
Fascinating to know.
So you won't know this, Christina, because you're not a regular viewer, but Madam here, the Limerick lady, they call her, who has a Limerick book out. She always likes to thank our guests with a personalized limerick. So if you are sitting comfortably,
we'll begin.
Then we shall begin. And a 1, 2, 3. In Hollywood's shimmering glow, Christina keeps legacies flow.
I got your name wrong.
With the great, no, we'll start again.
Yes, we'll start again. I'm sorry.
It's always line 2 she bucks up.
Yeah.
Okay. And a 1, 2, 3. In Hollywood's shimmering glow, Christina keeps legacies flow. With the great Capra name, she's forging her fame with new tales that the whole world will know. Ta-da! There you go.
That was amazing.
I'll email it to you.
I'll definitely email it to you. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
And
do keep us appraised with what's going on.
Yep. And
thank you so much.
Decide what I'm going to wear to the Oscars party, the after party.
Yes.
When you invite me.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. And we'll get you hooked up with some of our filmy peeps, because you just never know.
Exactly. You never know.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Dina. Thank you, Becca. Becca Pentland's on from Texas. Okay. Sammy's on from Atlanta. Paul Moody's on from the bar down the street. Great show. Lots of love. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule. And we will see you all of a sudden.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.